Hello, all my brothers. Alright, there's a book here called The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. Yeah? Because what you have to understand is that we ended up in Africa because of the siege that happened in Jerusalem under Caesar Tiberius during 70 AD. Now, the Hebrew Israelites that were in Israel at the time of the Romans, the tribes that were left, the two tribes that were left and a remnant of the Levi tribe that was still left there, we were under siege by them for 3 years, and they finally broke through the walls of Jerusalem and made their way in and defeated us. And they took, I think, 100,000 of us as slaves, and I think 1.1 million, roughly, or 1 million of them went down into the west coast of Africa. Now you might ask, why did we go down to the west coast of Africa? What you have to remember is that Israel, which is, where are we? Here, is, contrary to popular belief, Israel is attached to Africa. You can walk straight from Egypt, that's Egypt there, Mizraim, that's the original name for Egypt, so it says Egypt there. You can walk straight from Egypt, straight into, they call that the Sinai Valley, straight into Israel, which is here. Now, Shechem is close to Jerusalem. There you go. There's Jerusalem there. So when the Romans came, Italy's over here. When the Romans came to seize Jerusalem, we left Jerusalem and we fled into Africa. Now you might ask, why do we flee into Africa? Now, if 1 million black people needed to run somewhere and hide to get away from the Romans, who are a narcissistical, barbaric set of people, who were gonna, who was committing murder on a daily basis, that was crucifying people for fun, where would you hide? If you as a black person today was running from the police or from anybody, where would you go? Would you go and go in a town and live amongst white people where you could be spotted out with a mine? Or would you go to a town that's populated with black people where you could hide amongst your own? Well, that's what we did. We left Israel, went down into Egypt, crossed there, past the Nile Valley, and went down into the, I might have a better picture of one here. Yeah. So that's Canaan, that's Israel. And we went down into, that's Mizraim, that's the original name of Egypt, Mizraim. That's one of Ham's sons. That's like Cush. See, Cush is the original name for Ethiopia. That's another one of Ham's son. Put. It's the original name for, I think that's like Algeria, Libya. The Libyans and the Algerians. That's another one of Ham's sons. So we went and lived, crossed over through there, because all these places were already occupied and built up. The empires were already there. In the Egyptians had their empires there, and Pharaohs. Cushites had their empires there. The Libyans had their empire there. We went down into the west coast of Africa to live. That's where we went. So that's how we ended up in Africa, and lived there for 1400 years before we were taken out into slavery by the Europeans, captured by the Africans, because we're not Africans, but we lived in Africa. It's a very important point that you got to understand. We Hebrew Israelites are not Africans, we are Israelites. We're from the nation of Israel. We were a nation of people before we were a country. Yeah? We went and lived there for 1400 years. We built empires in Ghana, Songhai, Mali, Nigeria, all on the west coast of Africa, all the way down to the south. And that's where we lived. So that's why the white man today would try to pass you off as Africans because we spent so long there. Now, if you took your family and lived in China for 500 years, it would never make you Chinese, no matter how long you lived there, because the Chinese are a nation of people. They're a particular nation of people. They're just like the Japanese are a nation of people. They look like the Chinese, don't they? Yeah, they both got slit eyes. They talk the same, not the same language, but they sound the same. To a foreign tongue, we wouldn't know if that person was Japanese or Chinese talking to us. We just know that they're Asians, basically. But they look the same. And you probably would say, oh, they're all Chinese. But they're different. So just like you have different races of Asian people, you've got the Chinese, you've got the Japanese, you've got the Vietnamese. They all look the same. The North Koreans, the South Koreans, all of those motherfuckers look the same. But none of them are the same nation. They're different nations of people. Just like us. We look the same as the Egyptians. We look the same as the Cushites. We look the same as the Libyans, the Babylonians, the original black people, the Yemenites from Yemen. But we're not them. We are Israelites. We're from a different nation. So this is what you must say. Don't get that twisted. Don't get that confused. Because this is what the white man wants to believe. He wants you to believe that we're all Africans. If you're black, you're all Africans. You're all under one umbrella. No, 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 no. We are a separate nation to them. We were a separate nation to them back then, and we're a separate nation to them now. This is what the white man's theology and teaching and education system wants you to believe, that you're Africans. Because he does not want you to know that you are God's chosen people, the Israelites. He does not want you to know that. This is our homeland. Samaria, Galilee, Phoenicia, Judah. These were the names of the places before we had split them up between the 12 tribes. You know, all of that was called Canaan, but these are the places that they were called before that. This is where we come from. We are Israelites. And what you have to remember as well, we were a nation before we were a country. Because before we came to Canaan and called it Israel and split it up between the 12 tribes, we were a nation of people. Like if I can let me show you. Sorry my brothers, let me quickly show you. Once again, we'll go back to the original. It was called Canaan, the 12 tribes. Now, this is who we were: Judah, Benjamin, Dan, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, Reuben. So this is what we occupy. These are the lands that we took over, that the Most High promised to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is the land that we were going to go into. And after 430 years of bondage under the Egyptians, and after 40 years of living in the wilderness, we came into our land that was promised to us, the land of milk and honey. So before we came here and we settled with the tribes living in different parts, because each tribe was given a certain part of the land to live on. And according to the size of your tribe and who you were, in terms of, for instance, the tribe of Judah, they were the chief tribe, which means they were the leaders of the 12 tribes. They were the chief tribes. They were the tribe in charge of the 12 tribes, basically. Yeah. Whereas the tribe of Manasseh and Ephraim, well, Ephraim was given a heritage. So when Jacob had died, he made Judah the chief, the head, even though Reuben was the firstborn. But Reuben wasn't given that task because Reuben had sinned. I forget exactly what he did, but Reuben had sinned and had done something bad towards his father, which he lost that chance of being the head. It was given to Judah. And then the heritage all Jacob's belongings, everything that he had, was given to Ephraim and Manasseh, his two sons. But Judah was given the leadership. So that's who we were. We were a nation of people. Because remember, these are Jacob's 12 sons. Jacob had 12 sons, yeah, which consist of the 12 tribes of Judah. And from those 12 sons, they are the progenitors of the Israelites. Well, Jacob was the progenitor of the Israelites, basically, because he was the one whose name changed from Jacob to Israel. And these are 12 sons. From those 12 sons grew 12 nations. One nation, but 12 tribes of people belonging to one nation, the Israelites. So they were a nation of people well before they came into the land. Because by the time they got there, there was probably about 2 million to 3 million Israelites that went into this land. So they became a nation. Where did they become a nation? In a place they called Mizraim, which is today known as Egypt, modern Egypt. Egypt is the name that the Greeks gave it, which means bondage. This is where we lived. We went into this place as a family of 70 people, Jacob and his 12 sons and their wives and their children, and we left there as a nation of about a million to 2 million after spending 430 years there. Okay? I just wanted to get that clear for you, that's who we were. We're a nation. So when they try to say to you, you're Africans, no. Because we lived in Africa for 1400 years after fleeing from the Romans, and you can read about that in a book called From Babylon to Timbuktu, yeah, by Rudolph R. Windsor. Because we lived there for 1400 years doesn't mean we're Africans. If all the people from the West Indies got up and left Jamaica and went and lived in China, before it wouldn't make them Chinese. So you just have to get it into your head. And because the Japs and the Chinks and the Vietnamese and the Koreans all look the same, it doesn't make them all one nation. They are different nations. The Koreans are from the nation of China though, but the Japanese are Ammonites, or the Chinese are Moabites. So these are these people that lived, let me show you, here, Moab. These are where the Chinese descend from. They descend from these people called the Moabites. The Japanese descend from these people called the Ammonites. That's who they descend from. That's the original land, the original people. They come from there, the Moabites, and the Ammonites are the Japanese. So they're different nations of people, just like we are, Israelites, different nation of people. So let me just quickly go over a few things to show you again. This is called the Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. And just to show you that. And quickly read a few extracts from this book here. This is page 16 in this same book. It says, the history of Israel has been handed down to us mostly from white scholars. I'm sure we can all agree on that all of our history has been given to us by white scholars. So they basically tell us something and we're meant to believe it. And the good thing about it is that most of us have spiritually woken up and know this to be a lie about 99.99999% of things that they tell us, these white people. As a result, the emphasis has been put on what ties Europe and Europeans to the Middle East. The possibility of a relationship between Black Africa and the Middle East is rarely mentioned, because those people that have mostly lived in Africa came from the Middle East. The Canaanites, who are the Africans, who are the Egyptians, the Ethiopians. You know, remember Canaan was the son of Ham. They're all from the same forefather, lived in the Middle East before they lived in Africa. The bias is our knowledge of history runs deep. It is reflected, for example, by the fact that little space is devoted to the historic and theological kingship between Christianity and the so-called pagan Greco-Roman religions of 2,000 years ago. It is also reflected by the fact that relatively few books deal with a non-Hebrewic ancestry of most white Jews who are descendants of the Greeks, Romans, Armenians, Bourbons and others who adopted or converted to Judaism during the period of its great expansion in the Mediterranean area before the Christian era began. Certainly few white historians are able to plumb the depths of anguish and despair suffered by black Africans who, like cattle, once were herded to the Western Hemisphere as slaves. Now it says, basically no single book can exhaustively deal with the subject, so that every facet and opinion is recorded therein. Our book is no exception. It is not written to rehash old viewpoints and biases. It is to rewrite the white history in Europe or the Middle East. Right. This is talking about the Ashanti of West Africa. Yeah, got the Ashanti, the Bantu of the West Africa. Yeah, these people were Hebrew Israelites. They are Hebrew Israelites, and these are the people that went to slavery. A lot of the Ashanti and the Bantu went into slavery in the West Indies, because you've got to remember the first slaves that were brought to the New World went to the West Indies first before they even went to the Americas. The Ashanti of West Africa. This is page 18. He says that to understand properly the spirit and aspirations of the Jamaican peasant, a close study of the African Ashanti themselves became necessary, and this study in turn led into some rather startling results and conclusions. In the first place, he continues, many Hebrewisms were discovered in Ashanti tribal customs. Then several Ashanti words were found to have a striking resemblance to those of the equivalent Hebrew meaning. Finally, the supreme being of the Ashanti gave strong evidence of being Yahweh, God of the Old Testament. This is page 26. One of the interesting similarities between the Ashanti and the ancient Hebrew customs is in the realm of childbirth practices. For example, the Ashanti mother is considered unclean for 8 days after the birth of her child. On the 8th day the child is given a name, and on the 14th day a related ceremony is observed. In all this we certainly are reminded of Hebrew customs, James Williams, and correctly so. Even the restrictions and taboos of the Ashanti women during her menstrual period, including her seclusion, read like a page borrowed from the book of Leviticus. He says about obvious references to the 12th chapter. As you know, when a woman is under her menstrual period, she can't stay in the same house as the man. This was a strict Hebrew custom, and these customs the Ashanti practiced as well. You've got to remember, a lot of these people, after being away for so long from the other tribes and from their home and from the law, they still remembered some of the laws, but a lot of they took on a lot of new stuff while they were there. Right, this is chapter 10, verse 76. The ancient Hebrews are parent stock from which the ancient Ashanti and related West Africans evolved. Now you've got to remember, all of the slaves came from West Africa. They didn't come from East Africa or South Africa or North Africa. They all came from the West African coast, because that's where we lived for 1400 years. So it says the ancient Hebrews are parent stock from which the ancient Ashanti and related West African tribes evolved. He added, it was the continuous influx of Hebrew settlers trekking up the Nile which eventually spread itself across Africa to the Niger River, and thence pretty much the whole of West Africa. The Ashanti word for lawgiver is Toro, almost identical to the law-giving Torah of the ancient Israelites. The Ashanti priests wear a 12-part breast visor, the 12 tribes of Israel. It's a 12-part breast and golden emblem turban, and a golden emblem turban, both found together only among the biblical priests of Israel. So the Ashanti priests that lived on the west coast of Africa wore a 12-part breast golden emblem with the 12 tribes of Israel on it, both found together only among the biblical priests of Israel. The Ashanti are typical of and interrelated to most black West African people, and live today in Ghana and the very heart of the old slave coast. In virtually every country in black Africa, remnants of an earlier Hebrew civilization can be found. In there biblical evidence of Hebrews living in black Africa? Is there biblical evidence of Hebrews living in black Africa? Yes. For example, the prophet Isaiah, who lived about 725 BC, said that God would recover the Israelites from Cush which is Ethiopia, and the Sudanese Republic. The prophet Zephaniah referred to Hebrews living beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. This is confirmed by Leo Africanus, a 16th century explorer and historian, that Israelites at the time of Solomon lived between Ethiopia and the Congo, the very heart of black Africa. Are black Americans descendants of the original Israelites? Black Hebrews trace their ancestry to Abraham, the Hebrew patriarch. He was born of a father, Terah, whom both Hebrew and Arabic traditions record was chief minister of King Nimrod, the Cushite ruler of the ancient Babylonian Empire. Right. Now this is talking about the disperse of the Hebrew Israelites during the rulership of Titus Caesar. With the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, this is page 96, with the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 by Titus and the Roman army, which I spoke to you about earlier, thousands of black Israelites of that era migrated through flight to Western and Southern Africa. Their posterity remained there for nearly 1,400 years. And what did I say? For 1,400 to 1,500 years they lived in the west coast of Africa. Continued the practice of their Hebraic tenants, were caught up in the West African slave trade in the 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th century, along with many African tribes, and enslaved in the Western Hemisphere. All this and more has been thoroughly documented in the first portion of this book. For further documentation, read Rudolph Windsor's From Babylon to Timbuktu, which I spoke to you about earlier. So, we must say to you about the slave trade. Were Africans involved in the slave trade? Oh, most definitely. Why? Because they knew we weren't their people. What were they doing? They were capturing us. The Hebrew Israelites lived on the west coast of Africa. They were selling us to who? The white man and the Arabs. And what were they doing? The white man and the Arabs were building the ships, and the white man was taking us from the west coast to Europe and to the Americas and to the West Indies. Now, who were the captains of these ships and who were the merchant bankers of these ships? Who were the people that insured these ships for their cargo? They were what we call the modern day Jewish people living in Israel today, and in Stamford Hill, and in Hendon, and all across America. Those modern day Jewish, fake so-called Jewish people, their descendants were the people then that were the captains of these slave ships and were the merchant bankers. They were the ones that insured them, so that when you lost a slave, when the slaves died and were killed during their passage, because you've got to remember, 75% of the slaves died during their passage to the Americans, to the West Indies. So for every 100 slaves that you had in that ship, 75 of them died during the Middle Passage. They were paid that money by the insurance of the ships, and the merchant bankers, who were the Jews today, the so-called fake Jews today, were the merchant bankers and the captains of the ship. They were one of the main people involved in the slavery of us, because they knew who we were. They knew who they were enslaving. They knew that we were God's chosen people. They knew that we were the true Hebrew Israelites, and that they are not. They are Satan's seed, these people. Let me tell you that now, 100%. Right, let me let me just quickly look at this. It says, what, for example, is generally thought to be distinctly Jewish by persons of European ancestry is far different from what is considered Jewish by the people of Asian or African descent. Bagels and lox, donut-shaped rolls and salmon, are considered native to most European Jews. Those are those white fake Jews. In fact, these foods are Slavic and are not Hebrew in origin. The common language of Central and Eastern European Jews, called Yiddish, really is 11th century German with an admixture of Slavic and Hebrew words and expressions. So those fake Jews that you see today, those white Jews who call themselves Jewish, because to be Jewish, to be ish, means you want to be something that you're not. If I say I'm blackish, that means I'm not actually black, but I'm blackish. Ish means I want to be something that I'm not. That's why they say they're Jewish. And that's why they call themselves Israelis. They could never call themselves Israelites because they know they're not the descendants of the 12 tribes. So they say they're Israelis. Everything about them is modern and new. So it tells you here, it says the common language of the Central and Eastern European Jews, called Yiddish, really is 11th century German with an admixture of Slavic and Hebrew words and expressions. The very word synagogue, which has become associated with the Jewish house of prayer, actually is a Greek word. It says even the word Jew came into popular usage after the words Hebrew and Israelite. The former Jew originally applied only to those who are of the tribe of Judah, which at one time was only part of the larger Israelite nation. In fact, it is for this last mentioned reason that most black Jews prefer to refer to themselves as Israelites or Hebrew Israelites to distinguish themselves from their white Jewish counterparts who are fakes. What we will discover is not merely that the history of black Africa is tied to that of the Middle East, but that also black people and the Hebrew civilization was synonymous from the time of the Hebrew patriarch Abraham onwards in Africa and in the Middle East itself. Right, so there's quite a lot you can read in this book here. You know, I mean, let's give it a synopsis of what this book is about. It says the Hebrew Israelites of biblical times, who and where are their descendants today? Stephen S. Jacobs, a European Jew and historian, because you've got to remember this book here, all right, where's his name, is written by a white European Jew who knows that these people are not the real Jews, that they are the fakes. All right, this is written by one of their own, as the Lord said, that their own are going to start to reveal them as well. Yeah, tells it like it was in a documentary which proves conclusively that most people of African descent living in America and other parts of the Western Hemisphere as a result of the African slave trade from 1517 to 1808 are offsprings of the ancient Israelites. Jacob quotes eminent eyewitnesses, anthropologists and archaeologists, professors and historians, including Professor Joseph J. Williams of Boston College, and presents to you the reader information that has far too long been suppressed. Williams did 11 years of research into the subject before writing his own notable book entitled Hebrewisms of West Africa. A seven-page bibliological starting on page 79 attests that the masterpiece is fully documented and that Jacobs has really done his homework. If enlightenment on the subject at hand is what you've been seeking, this is the book to read. Undoubtedly, it deserves a prominent place among the choice of the books of your personal library. So this is a Jew, a white Jew man, that write this book, that tell you that the people that went into slavery from the west coast of Africa, which are my descendants, your descendants, all those people that live in Jamaica, all throughout the West Indies, and black people in America are all descendants from the slave trade. I'm not talking about the modern people that migrated from Africa today in the last 100 years. All those people who go back to slavery, and also the North American Indians. You must not forget these. Those are the 10 lost tribes. The 10 lost tribes are the people who live all across North America and South America and throughout Canada. The original indigenous people. Those are the other 10 tribes. Yeah? So we must not lose sight of that. One last thing about these European Jews, just to show you, this is a book by Arthur Koestler, the 13th tribe. Because basically, this is another Jew man, this is him here. He's a scholar, he's a rabbi. And basically what he's saying to you is that if these Jews that we see today in Israel and across the world are Jews, then they've got to be the 13th tribe. Because there's only 12 tribes. So they must be the 13th tribe, because he knows that they have nothing to do with the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what he wrote. This is a professor and a scholar and a rabbi. And this is what he wrote in his book here. He says, a few years later, probably AD 7040, the king, his court, and the military ruling class embraced the Jewish faith, and Judaism became the state religion of the Khazars. No doubt their contemporaries were as astonished by this decision as modern scholars were when they came across the evidence in the Arab, Byzantine, Russian, and Hebrew sources. All right? This is page 17 of this book. This was written before the full extent of the Holocaust was known. Yeah? But that does not alter the fact that the larger majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khaza origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race, and that genetically they are more closely related to the Han, the Igu, and the Magyar tribes than to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This isn't talking about the white Jews living in Israel today and across the world. It says their seed is more related to they're not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus. That's why they call them Caucasians, because they lived in the Caucasus Mountains, for those who did not know. Once believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race, and that generally they are more closely related to the Han, the Igu, and the Magna tribes than to be the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Should this turn to be the case, then the term anti-Semitism would become void of meaning based on a misapprehension shared by both the killers and their victims. The story of the Khaza Empire is, as it slowly emerges from the past, begins to look like the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated. So this man's telling you that the story of the Khaza Empire seems to be the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated, because now these are the people that have gone on to say that they are the true children of Israel, and they are not. It says there, our investigations cannot go into problems pertaining to the history of the ideas, but we must call the reader's attention to the matter of the Khaza kingdom state religion. It was the Jewish faith which became the official religion of the ruling strata of society. Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as the state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people could be the subject of interesting speculation. We shall, however, confine ourselves to the remark that the official conversion in defiance of Christian proselytizing by the Byzantium, the Muslim influence from the East, and in spite of the political pressure of these two powers, to a religion which had no support from any political power but was persecuted by nearly all, and has come as a surprise to all historians concerned with the Khazars, and cannot be considered as accidental, but must be regarded as a sign of the independent policy pursued by the kingdom. What is in dispute is the fate of the Jewish Khazars after the destruction of their empire in the 12th or 13th century. On this problem, the sources are scant, but various late medieval Khazar settlements are mentioned in the Crimea, in the Ukraine, in Hungary, Poland, and Lithuania, because that's where all of these Jews come from. Ukraine, Crimea, Hungary, Poland, Lithuania, Czechoslovakia. They're all Eastern European, these white Jews that you see today. They're nothing to do with the 12 tribes of Israel. They are not God's chosen people. They're not from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They are nothing to do with them. The general picture that emerges from the fragmentary piece of information is that of a migration of Khazar tribes and communities into those regions of Eastern Europe, mainly Russia and Poland, where at the dawn of the modern age, the greatest concentration of Jews were found. This has led several historians to conjecture that a substantial part, or perhaps the majority of Eastern Jews, and hence of world Jewry, might be of Khaza and not of Semitic origin. Shemitic origin. Remember, where we come from. We're the descendants of Shem. Shem was Noah's son. We are Shemitic. It's not even Semitic. It's Shemitic. And it says here, these Eastern Jews, hence of the world of Jewry, the majority of the Eastern Jews from the world of Jewry might be of Khaza. And the Khaza is where? Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Hungary, Crimea, Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, and not of the Shemitic origin. The far-reaching implication of this hypothesis may explain the great caution exercised by historians in approaching this subject, if they do not avoid it altogether. It says, thus in 1973, the edition of the Encyclopedia of Julia, the Articles Khazar is signed by Dunlop, but there is a separate section dealing with Khazar Jews after the fall of the kingdom. The Turkish-speaking Karaites, a fundamentalist Jewish sect of the Crimea, Poland and elsewhere, have affirmed a connection with the Khazars, which is perhaps confirmed by evidence from folklore and anthropology as well as language. There seems to be a considerable amount of evidence attesting to the continued presence in Europe of the descendants of the Khazars. That's who they are. They are from the Khazar Empire. They are Eastern Europeans. You can just look at them and you know that they're Eastern European, these white so-called Jews who claim to be Jews. Nothing about them tells you, but this is a very good book to get, Arthur Koestler. And it tells you, it says, this is a synopsis on the book. It says, this book traces the history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in Eastern Europe, which in the Dark Ages became converted to Judaism. Because you can't convert to be an Israelite. Judaism is a religion. The Israelites don't deal with religion. And that's another thing I have to get clear of you. It's a way of life. We're a nation of people who were given God's laws, commandments and statutes to live by. We didn't live by no religion. We didn't have no religion called Judaism. This is what these people brought to the forefront. They had no religion or belief, so they took on Judaism. So they converted to Judaism. Khazaria was finally wiped out by the forces of Genghis Khan, but evidence indicates that the Khazars themselves migrated to Poland and formed the cradle of the Western Jewry. To Poland, Eastern Europe, and formed the cradle of the Western, which is these white Jews, Jewry. To the general reader, the Khazars who flourished from the 7th to the 11th century may seem infinitely remote today, yet they have a close and unexpected bearing on our world, which emerges as Mr. Koestler recounts the fascinating history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in Eastern Europe. That's about the time that the Charmelade and the Emperor in the West. The Khazars' sway extended from the Black Sea to the Caspian, from the Caucasus to the Volga. And I might even have a thing here to show you where these demons live. There you go. That's why they call themselves Ashkenazis as well. They call themselves Ashkenazis. Now this is an ancient world. This is an ancient world map. This is a map from probably roughly about 700-800 years ago, right? This is Ashkenazi. They call themselves Ashkenazi Jews. But this is where they come from. This is Eastern, going up into Eastern Europe here. This is where they come from. Magog and Gog. That's Russia going up there. And then you got the rest of it, Poland and the rest of these places and that. But this is where they live. This is where the Khazar. This is the Caspian Sea, the Black Sea there. And this is their empire. This is where the Khazar Empire was. I might have a better one here to show you. No, I don't, unfortunately. But that's where they come from anyway. It says the Khazar sway extended from the Black Sea to the Caspian, from the Caucasus to the Volga, and they were instrumental in stopping the Muslim onslaught against Byzantium. The eastern jaw of the gigantic Pincia movement that in the west swept across northern Africa and into Spain. Thereafter, the Khazars found themselves in a precarious position between the two major world powers. The Eastern Roman Empire in Byzantium, which was controlled by the Israelites. The Byzantine Empire, they were Israelite emperors, because that's where it went from calling the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire. And the triumph followers of Muhammad. As Mr. Koestler pointed out, the Khazars were the third world of their day, and they chose a surprising method of resisting both the Western pressures to become Christians and the Eastern to adopt Islam. Rejecting both, they converted to Judaism. In the second part of this book, The Heritage, Mr. Koestler speculates about the ultimate faith of the Khazars and their impact on the racial composition and social heritage of modern Jewry. He produces a large body of meticulously detailed research in support of a theory that sounds all the more convincing for the restraint with which it is advanced. Yet, should this theory be confirmed, the term anti-Semitism would become void of meaning, since Mr. Koestler writes, it is based on misapprehension shared by both the killers and their victims. The story of the Khazar Empire is as slowly emerges from the past, begins to look like the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated. And that just tells you all, the most cruel hoax history has perpetrated. Now we can go to a few more scriptures here before we finish this session here. Just to continue with, like I said, anything we prove with history, we've got to prove with the Bible as well. If it's not in the Bible, then we can't take it to be true. Okay, we're going to go to Lamentations 4 and 7. Yeah. Lamentations 4, verse 8. Their visage is blacker than a coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to the bones. It is withered. It is become like a stick. Now, so this is talking about the miseries of famine that was going on amongst Israelites when they were under siege by the Assyrians. Yeah. Now it says the visage is blacker than coal. Let me start at verse 7. Chapter 4, verse 7. Her Nazarites were purer than snow. They were whiter than milk. So it means when it says they're purer than snow, whiter than milk, it's talking about the spirit of the people, who they were. These people were spiritually purer than snow. Yeah, the Israelites. Everybody knew them to be God's people. They were more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing was of sapphire. Now, if you want to know what the word ruddy means, all right, ruddy comes from ruddy comes from the Latin word rubicundus, which is spelled R-U-B-I-C-U-N-D-U-S. That's R-U-B-I-C-U-N-D-U-S. Ruddy comes from the Latin word rubicundus, in reference to the colour of the soil on its banks at the Adriatic coast, North Italy, during the time of Julius Caesar, 49 BC. It was a word that was used back then to describe the soil near the banks, the soil on the banks of the Adriatic coast. Ruddy comes from the word rubicundus. Yeah. So it's not what you think they mean it is today. You have to look at in the original term. You have to look at the etymology of the word to find out what it meant back then. So it meant the colour of the soil. Yeah. So when it says here, they were whiter than milk, talking about their spirit, it says the Nazarites were purer than snow, they were whiter than milk. Yeah, they were purer than snow, whiter than milk. Yeah, when someone talks about someone that's pure, it means who they are, spiritually who they are. It says they were not ruddy, they were more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing was of a sapphire. Their visage is blacker than coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaves to their bone. It is withered. It has become like a stick. It says, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger. For these pine away, stricken through for want of the fruits of the field. So, like I said, they were going through a serious famine back then because they were under siege. Now, I told you already that when black people are going through famine, have you seen it many a times when they like to show the pictures of black children in famine in Africa, they go darker in their skin. Their visage, your visage is your face. So when it says their visage is blacker than coal, right? We all know what colour coal is. I've never seen a white piece of coal in my life. And this is Jeremiah talking about the Israelites, talking about his people, what they looked like during their suffering under the siege. Yeah? This is Lamentations chapter 4, verse 7 and 8. So when it says they were more ruddy in body than rubies, yeah? Ruddy was describing the colour of the soil. And I said already, it comes from the Latin word rubicundus, which was reference to the soil on the banks of the Adriatic coast. And we all know what colour soil is. If you've ever seen white soil before, please, 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 film it and put it on YouTube so we can all see it. Because I've never seen white soil in my life. Yeah? So this is another one telling you that the Israelites, as a people, as a nation of people, were black people. Their visage is blacker than coal. We know coal is black already. So when they're describing their face as blacker than coal, need I say any more? Lamentations chapter 4, verse 7. And let me go to Songs of Solomon. That's the one I wanted. Songs of Solomon. Let's first go to David. Let's go to Songs of Solomon here. Songs of Solomon. There you go. Right, we've got Songs of Solomon chapter 5 verse 10. Right. And this is talking about King David. Yeah? Chapter 5 verse 10 it says, my beloved is white and ruddy, the chiefest among 10,000. So when she says he's white, it's quite pure, because the word white to be used back then always meant that you were pure. Yeah? That you were pure, that is to say you were spiritually pure. Yeah? And untainted, uncorrupted. So it says, my beloved is white and ruddy. Right? Ruddy, I told you already what ruddy. Ruddy is the colour of the soil. Yeah? Ruddy meant the colour. When you describe, when they were describing the colour of the soil, when Caesar was travelling through the Adriatic coast on his way to deal with the Carthage Empire, he described the soil as ruddy, the colour of it. So this is one of King David's wives talking about him. What is thy beloved more than another beloved? O thy fairest among women. What is thy beloved more than another beloved, that thou doest so charge us? As my beloved is white and ruddy, the chiefest among 10,000. Yeah? So it says he's white, means he's pure, and he's ruddy, colour of his skin. Yeah? It's like soil. The chiefest among 10,000. His head is as the most fine gold. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. Now, I don't know any white people that's got bushy hair unless they're descendants from black people. Yeah? So this is describing his head as his head is as the most fine gold. And that's once again, when it's the fine gold, they're talking about how pure his hair must have looked back then. It's I forget the word that he used. It's an analogy she's using there. His locks, now she's describing the actual hair. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. And that's King David describing. Now if we go to Songs of Solomon, chapter 1 verse 5, this is King Solomon, this is King David's son, talking about himself. I am black but commonly, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. So he's saying I am black. King Solomon said I am black. You can't get any clearer than that. And commonly means beautiful, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Yeah? Look not upon me because I am black. Once again. I mean, doesn't need to be any clearer than that. He says, look not upon me because I'm black. Because black, to be black, it was beautiful. Not what these white people try to do today. To be black was a negative thing where you got all these black people dyeing their skin and everything, like fucking, what's his name? Not Mavaldo, the other one. The reggae DJ. Can't think of his name again. In Jamaica, that's bleaching out his skin like some big time pum pum girl. Vibes Cartel in Jamaica. Big DJ like Vibes Cartel, big man like him, bleaching his skin to be white. I pray God strike him down dead, kill him dead. Make gunman shut him down dead, because he's a wicked man to be doing that. Wicked, big time Benjamite like that, from the tribe of Israel, dyeing his skin. King Solomon here telling you, I am black, but commonly, O you daughters of Jerusalem. So when he says, oh you daughters of Jerusalem, he's talking to the people, because the Most High always called the people of the Israelites his daughter. Yeah, the daughters of Jerusalem. That's why it was another analogy that he used to refer to them as the Most High. But it's King Solomon saying that. As the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun has looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of their vineyards, but my own vineyards have I not kept. So like I said, the white man reversed everything to make it seem like to be black is a wicked and horrible and backward thing, and the lighter you are, the better. It's complete and utter bullshit, because the Israelites were black, dark-skinned people. Different shades of brown, but more darker then than we are today, because we've mixed with so many different nations today. Well, we have different shades of brown for us, but that's who they were. And just to let you go to, where is it going now? I'm going to go to Maccabees, which is in same King James Bible. This is the original King James Bible with the Apocrypha in it. The Maccabees chapter 1. Maccabees 1 chapter 3. Verse 3, chapter 3. Maccabees 1 chapter 3, verse 48. We'll start at verse 47. Then they fasted that day, and put on sackcloth, and cast ashes upon their heads, and rent their clothes, and laid open the book of the law, wherein ye heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. Now, have they not done that? Have the heathen of the nations gone around and painted the likeness of their images on all of us prophets, all of the people from the Bible, changing them from black to white, from Moses to Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to Yahushua, all of them. All of them. And it tells you in here, Maccabee, and this is Maccabee chapter 3 verse 48. And laid open the book of the law, wherein ye heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. So this is prophesied that they were going to do this. And the Maccabees lived about 100 BC. They lived before Christ. About 100, between 100 and 150 BC, they lived before Christ. They were fighting Antiochus, and Ptolemy. They were fighting those people back then. And then let's go to Yahushua, ignorantly known as Jesus Christ. This is the description of Christ by John the Reveler. This is St. John the Divine. The revelations, and we all know what the word revelations means. It means reveal, to reveal, the revealing. So it says the revealing of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto the servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ and of all the things that he saw. Blessed is he that readeth, and that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for time is at hand. Okay? Now we're going to go down to verse 13. It's the same chapter 1, verse 13. Right? Talking about, this is John now, revealing who Yahushua, Jesus Christ, is. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet were like unto the fine brass. Did you hear that? Let me go back a bit. Verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool. Now the only people that has wool texture here is black people. So Jesus' hair was white like was white like wool. Wool like my hair, but was white. Yeah? As white as snow. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, because he drank a lot of wine. Remember Jesus was a wine beater? He liked wine. And his feet like unto fine brass. So we all know what colour brass is. Brass is a dark brown colour, right? As if they burned in a furnace. So if you can imagine anything you burn in a furnace, whether it brass, whether it this, well, anything. If I take this pen, put it in a furnace, they're all going to come out black. So you can imagine how dark Yahushua Jesus Christ was. Original black man, Jesus Christ, made in the image of his Father. We go to, let's go to a few more scriptures before we finish here. Daniel. Daniel 7, chapter 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. So we all know the Ancient of Days is, that's Yahweh, that's the Most High, because there's not more ancient than him. Yeah? And the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow. So he had on a white garment. So we know he's got a body because he's got a white garment. If you have a garment, it's got to be on a body. Yeah? And his hair and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So this is Daniel the prophet telling you that the Most High's hair was like pure wool. Pure wool. Go look on wool on a lamb when you shear a lamb. That's what the black man's hair is. There's no other nation on this planet that has hair like wool. And we've always been told we got woolly hair, woolly hair. So when they realise that the Most High and Yahweh have woolly hair, they're soon going to tell us that we got straight hair. That's why you got all those muppet women, all those niggas out there straightening their hair when they don't know to have woolly hair. It's the hair of the Most High. You've been blessed for those that do have it. His throne was like a fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth, and before him thousands and thousands ministered unto him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were open. There you go. It's describing you the Most High, telling you that the man's hair is got pure wool. Only a black man has woolly hair. Nobody else. Nobody else has woolly hair. And just one last thing I just need to get to you guys before we close up here. Ezra. Okay. Remember what I said to you earlier that the other 10 lost tribes are the indigenous North American, South American Indians throughout Puerto Rico, where they live today basically. You've got the Cubans, tribe of Manasseh, Zebulon, Belize, Honduras, Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, from Guatemala to Panama basically. Simeon are the Dominicans, Ephraim are the Puerto Ricans, Levi are the Haitians, Benjamin are the West Indies, Judah are the Black Americans, Reuben are the Somalian Indians, Naphtali are the native Indians of Argentina and Chile, Asher are from Colombia to Uruguay, and Issachar are the native Indians from Mexico. Now if you want to know how they ended up in the Americas, I'm going to tell you right here. This is in Esdras 2. This is chapter 13, verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria, led away captive. Now Salmanasseh is the same king that we spoke about earlier, who they called Tilgapilsa the third. It's the same king we're talking about. Yeah? Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into the land. But they took this counsel amongst themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through the country there was a great way to go, namely of 1.5 years, and the same region is called Ashereth. Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. Now this is them telling you about the 10 tribes taken away into captivity by Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria. They was under him for captivity for about 20-30 years, and then they decided to get together, the Hebrew Israelites, and leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth to a further country which they never mankind had dwelt, which was the Americas. Now they entered in through the Euphrates. I'll quickly show you. Might have one here. Because they entered in through the Euphrates into the Red Sea. Probably not. But this is where they would have gone. That's Assyria, into captivity. Yeah, they're taken from here, from north again to there to captivity. Now, they entered into the Red Sea through the Euphrates River, which is this one here. That's the Euphrates there. Through there they went into the Red Sea, and then from there They've gone from the Red Sea, which is from here. That's the Red Sea there. They've gone into. From here, they've travelled around the Horn of Africa, and then they've come up here, into the Americas. Because nobody lived in the Americas as of that point. There was nobody there. Now, how they knew to do that, when King Solomon was building his temple in Jerusalem, he had a merchant shipman who would travel and go on a journey that took them 3 years to go and come back, to go and get gold, timber, all different kinds of things that they needed to build a temple. And they would go to a place called Tarshish, which was along here, where the ships were built. And the Phoenicians, who were great sailors back then, navigators, worked with the Israelites. The Phoenicians were the ones that were the captains of the ship, that sailed the ship, and took the Israelites with them on that journey. And some Canaanites were with them as well, because at that time all of these kingdoms were subdued under Solomon. Everybody would bring tributes to him. And they would take these ships from here, and go to America. It would take them 3 years to go and come back. And to retrieve, they'd spend some time there, probably 6 months there, gathering their stuff, and then they'd come back. But they'd be gone for 3 years. And that's all fully documented in Kings. If you read Kings 2 in the Bible, it will tell you about the journeys that King Solomon sent the Phoenicians and a place from a place called Tarshish on their journey, and they've gone a 3-year journey to there and back to come back. And this is how the 10 tribes knew about this new country, this new world, the Americas, how to get there, how to sail there. So it tells you in the Bible, in Maccabees, it tells you about this. How the 10 tribes. So the 10 tribes are our other brothers and sisters who are part of our nation, who are the original North American Indians, South American Indians, the Taiwanians, the Arawak Indians who lived in the West Indies, who lived in Puerto Rico, the Seminoleans, the Gad. All of those are our brothers from our nation.